Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Beyond Lists, Easy Ways to Add Services and Grow Revenue. I'm Jeanette Rumsey, Corporate Education and Engagement Manager for AccuData Integrated Marketing and today's webinar moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few important items with you. Questions can be submitted throughout today's webinar, but will be covered at the end of the presentation. Please use the Q&A panel within the GoToWebinar platform to submit your questions. If there are questions that we do not cover, please feel free to email them to info@accudata.com for a prompt reply. You can also call your AccuData account representative directly at 800-732-3440. And next, I'd like to introduce today's presenter and direct marketing expert, Bethany McKay. Bethany is a Vice President of Sales and has been with AccuData for an astonishing 20 years. Bethany, that's incredible. Thank you. Bethany's primary focus is supporting AccuData's printers, mail houses, agencies, and direct marketing clients through the optimization of multi-channel data sets in order to maximize their profits. And Bethany, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Absolutely.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that you joined us. I think that everyone on the webinar is going to learn something. Some will be review, and some is going to be really interesting, and is going to give you maybe a fresh new way to look at ways you can grow your business. AccuData really likes to focus on educating, helping our customers, moving into being more market service providers. We're the experts, and we kind of live and breathe all of these things, and we want to help teach you all about everything that we can so that you can grow your business, because if you grow, we grow, and that's what we all want to see happen. So let's get started. We're going to talk today kind of about two different scenarios. Scenario number one is your customer comes to you and they say, we want you to initiate our campaign, however, we have our own data. We're going to give you our own list, and that's who we want to market to. The other side of that is your client comes to you and they need a list. And we're going to talk about both of those. And in both cases, you can grow revenue. When a client brings their list to you, it does not just mean that you take that list and you do what is necessary. There are so many ways that you can add value for your client, help your client drive their campaign to have increased ROI. And then also, in doing that, you're growing your own revenue on the sale. So let's talk about a few ways that you can grow revenue without selling a list, which might sound a little crazy since we are a list provider, but honestly, there's so many things that we can do that really don't involve brokering a list. So number one, you can help your customer understand who those folks are that are in the data they brought you. Their own customers are sometimes a mystery to them. They think they know, but they might not. You can add demographic intelligence and contact level information to their file. This is going to give them a wealth of information to use down the way in terms of versioning, the offer, the imagery, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. You can perform address hygiene. Typically, when a customer brings you a house file, it can be a little messy, it can be a little dated, and it can have some addresses in it that maybe they really don't want to market to. Spend the money on the print and postage, that could be spent better elsewhere. We can talk about adding some digital. So adding some banner, some Facebook in conjunction with the postal campaign, not in place of it, because we've learned multiple touches are going to be what drives conversions, and we're going to get into that and some statistics as well. And then number 5, we can provide some data visualization. I think this is one that people miss. When you have a customer that perhaps has multiple locations, sometimes it's really hard for them to understand, a McDonald's might be on every corner in a mile area, and they say, well, gosh, we can't get enough records around these stores. Sometimes when you put it in a map and let them look at it, it really, really helps your ability to help them and then for them to develop some more market penetration ideas. So first, let's talk a little bit about SNAPSHOT. SNAPSHOT is a very simple profile. You take the customer's data, you put it in a system, and you get a report back. As it says, you get it back in minutes, and we're not joking. It really is minutes. So when you put in the client data, we need only 500 records. That's to ensure that we can match enough of them that we can get a really nice picture of who those people are. We're going to match that data to dozens of demographic variables. We run Snapshot against two different databases. One offers about 18 variables, one offers 23. They're similar, most demographics. There's a few things that are nuances, and we can walk you through those. And we're going to be able to give you a detailed profile report in a couple of minutes. It's an online system that we can do for you, or you can do yourself on our HYGIENE.com count and order system. The other really cool feature about Snapshot that a lot of people don't realize is you can brand it for yourself. So if you have an HYGIENE.com login and you'd like to run these profiles and upload the data, you can go in, you can put your logo, you can change the color scheme, so when you turn around and present this to a customer, you can show them that it came from you. This is just one example, the ages that you're going to get. So you can see it gives you quite a bit of information. And on the back end, it also allows you to pull data for lookalikes to the customers that we profiled, so that in the future, when they want to start adding prospects, they'll be able to add the right prospects. Number two, let's talk about enhancement. So with the snapshot, we get kind of a picture of what the customers look like, and we can use that in, planning and kind of building the campaign around it. With adding enhancements, you're actually appending the data to the customer's file, and what that's going to let you do is use that for your creative, use that in the marketing campaign, and identify some areas where maybe there's not some information that you might be able to plug in. And then that last bubble talks about email addresses. This is so important. We have so many people that come and they want to do a campaign and they have postal data, but they don't have a way to connect with them digitally. And in this day and age, digital is the way to go. You want to put that together with your postal, and we can add email addresses to that client data and initiate an email campaign right alongside the postal campaign. So let's talk about a couple little statistics. 80% of respondents indicated they were more likely to do business with a company if it offered personalized experiences. That came from Epsilon. They are a partner of ours and a very fantastic database that has a lot of great attributes. It's interesting when you look at that, because I have to say, when I go through my my mailbox, or I go through my email inbox, and I see things and I think, well, they don't really know me. It doesn't seem like this is a good fit for me. I'm much less interested in reading about it. I kind of disregard it up front. When you work to get the piece to go to the consumer, where when that consumer receives it, they say, well, this is me. This is exactly me. They're talking to me. They know what I like, and they know kind of what stage in life I'm at. It's really super important. So we can use demographics to segment campaigns. So if you take that client list and you append some age, some presence of children, maybe some income, and marital status, well, now when you're doing the campaign to send out in the mail or send out via email, you can send a picture on the piece that goes to the folks that are 65 and over that's a couple that resembles them. It's someone who's doing things that maybe a 65-year-old would do, possibly looking at retiring, possibly spending time with their children and grandchildren. When that comes in their mailbox, it's going to resonate with them much better than if they received a piece that showed a couple of millennials shopping at the mall. You could probably put that together and see where that could be important. You can also take the appended variables and use them in variable print, so that when you address these folks and you use different creative or offers, you can make it a more personalized approach in that way as well. Back to the email addresses. This is, again, super important. According to the DMA, the average consumer needs 7 to 13 touch points to convert. We've heard numbers that go even higher than that. So if you've got 7 to 13 times you need to connect with that consumer before they start considering converting or making a purchase, it's really important that you connect with them that many times. So when someone brings a list to you and they don't really need anything, you may want to talk to them about appending email addresses and communicating in that way. Now they're going to get a direct mail piece. They're going to think that's great. Maybe they don't take the step in going to the website or making a purchase that day, but it gets in. It's an impression. Then maybe you communicate with them after that campaign and touch them by email. Hey, don't forget, this is going on. You're going to want to take advantage of this. And then maybe even a third touch saying, hey, this sale is running out. You only have so much time. So when you append email addresses, we really suggest that you append all email addresses per household. We find that many people have more than one email address, and we also find that sometimes married couples will share information. I know I get emails sometimes, and I feel like that's more applicable to my husband. I actually forward them to his email, and he does the same for me. So when you only limit yourself to one person in the household, you may not be hitting the person that you need, so I would suggest doing all. And you can also take those email addresses once they're appended, and you can find those people on social media and add social handles, so you can also use that when you add some display through Facebook. So let's talk about building some revenue for yourselves by using hygiene. And when we talk about hygiene, it sounds we've all talked about it before. It's not the most glamorous piece of this, but it is a necessary piece of this. And hygiene against these files is super important for a lot of reasons. And we're going to talk a little bit about hygiene, but we want to go beyond NCOA. NCOA is pretty basic, national change of address. Most people are going to run their files through that. It's talked about the most, but there's a lot of hygiene that goes on behind the scenes that is really going to be a benefit. So let's talk about a couple different pieces of that. DSF is one that I think it doesn't get enough attention. We really use this a lot for a lot of different tools. The DSF we use now is second generation, so it's been updated. This is a United States Postal Service process. It's really quick and it's actually quite inexpensive. It's a great add-on to your customer data so that you can clean it before it hits the mail stream. This is going to standardize their addresses. It's going to confirm the addresses. It's going to actually assign a mail score to the records, and it's going to allow you to look at those scores and say, ooh, anything below number 4 we want to get rid of because those are questionable in deliverability, and they may contribute to some wasted print and postage. You're going to want to be able to identify if there's business addresses mixed in with those residential addresses. Perhaps their offer is only applicable to a resident, and it's not a business offer. They would not want to waste that piece going to a business where it's probably going to end up in the trash can. You can identify vacancies and seasonal addresses. And this is a big one because a lot of times people don't realize that people move. So seasonal addresses, if you've got people who own property in New York and own property in Florida, you want to make sure you're sending the mail piece to where they are at the time. People don't always forward. Sometimes they change and move between. So you want to touch on that. And you certainly don't want to send it to a vacant home. You can also count on DSF to add a walk sequence number, and this might be important in terms of costs of the postage to your customer. When you can clean a file, remove some records that are bad, that are going to cost them waste, you can take that waste amount, the dollars that would have been spent on the print and the postage for pieces that don't make it to their desired target, and then you can use that to help them identify new prospects or send more pieces or add email. So it's always doing the best thing for your customer and then being able to add things for their campaign to make it grow and make it more successful. So let's talk about suppression. This is another big one. Clients bring you data and it's not necessarily clean, so once you run it through DSF and you figure out what's deliverable, you may want to do some suppression. Client file suppression, we can apply their client file to a prospect list. We can merge and purge data they have provided you if it's in multiple files. We can suppress previous orders, so if they have mailed to these folks before, we can take those out. And then a couple really big ones are deceased suppression. Client data typically has a fallout of deceased records that can be, several percentage points of the file. So it's super important to get rid of those. You can also suppress prison addresses. It sounds kind of crazy, but there are prison addresses in the files. They do receive mail, but they're probably not going to be the most responsive audience, so perhaps we'd want to take those out. And then also the DMA do not mail file. That's the mail preference file that consumers can add their names to be removed. With customer data, you have a relationship with them, so it doesn't necessarily apply, but sometimes it's best practice not to communicate with them via mail if they've requested not to get direct mail. And then, then the final one is email validation. So email validation is when the client brings you their list and it does have email on it and it's coming from where they've captured it through their website or through previous transactions. Emails decay at an alarming rate. So you really, really want to clean these up. If they're planning on using these for email, most broadcast services like the ones we offer, we require it to be validated before we'll send it. But oftentimes clients are using things like Constant Contact and they want to do this on their own. We really would recommend upselling them on an email validation. You can see all the codes there. We offer a lot of codes so that you can really understand where these are coming from. We would recommend that you email to the V's, the C's, and the U's for the best deliverability, and certainly remove the rest. When you do that, you can also offer an email append. So if they give you a file and it's got a lot of emails and then we clean it and it goes down in volume, we can always run that through an append and try to replace those. So it's another great way to help the client and also add revenue. Number 4, let's talk about building revenue with some digital. Digital has been around, it's the big buzz, everybody talks about it, but every day I have a client call and they just feel a little intimidated by it. They don't necessarily know how to kind of build it in or position it, so we're going to chat a little bit about that today. So adding email to a direct mail piece, it's going to get more impressions like we discussed. It's a great way to go. Matching the postal addresses to IP addresses so you can do some display and banner ads. And then also using that postal data to put display carousel ads in Facebook or Instagram. So here's just an example. This kind of gives you a view of all these different digital pieces. So in this case, a client came to us and said, hey, we're mailing out this piece, and this is our sale, and we'd really like to add some digital. Can you help? And we say, well, absolutely. We can take that mail piece and our creative team can make a HTML to go out on email. We can create a Facebook campaign with a carousel ad, which you'll see up in the screen where the mobile device is showing the images out. We can display this on any kind of digital displaying tool that's out there and make it all look the same. Remember when we talked about those 7 to 13 impressions that a consumer needs to convert? This is where that becomes important. So you'll notice each of these different channels still looks like the same ad because everyone's brain is going to see it and they're going to see it in print and go, oh, okay, President's Day sales event, great. They're going to see it on their mobile device when they're scrolling through Facebook and they're going to go, oh, I saw that. That's that ad. And then they're going to maybe log into their iPad when they get home from work and they're scrolling around on there and maybe a banner ad is going to come up. And guess what? It's going to look the same. That's how you get the multiple impressions. If each of these ads look different, it's not going to necessarily register in the recipient's brain that it's the same ad, the same brand, the same company. So it's real important to do. We have a creative team. I know many of you have creative teams, but we can certainly help and give you some guidance or build out these creatives for you. So number 5, we're going to talk about that mapping. This is one that, again, is kind of overlooked, and it is such a great tool. When we talk to customers and suggest that they do some custom mapping, it's really gives them a sense of what they're doing, and they can see all of this information on a map, and it gives kind of your brain sort of understands it when you can look at it. So when a client brings you data, we can take that data and display a map that shows where their customers are. We can plot their locations. We can plot competitor locations. We can show when there's multiple, think of McDonald's. This is just a great one. When there's multiple stores very close together. In a small area, there could be several McDonald's. And if they all want to radiate around, they kind of run into each other. And then they're saying, well, gosh, this store doesn't have enough records because that store took all their prospects. Well, when you look at it on a map, all of that becomes kind of clear, and you can make decisions about who's going to get what. Should you put a couple addresses on the piece so they can choose between locations? Really gives you some insight. We can also do heat maps that can show density of customers. You can show density of demographics of the customers and really get a feeling for who's where, what they look like, and then also it helps them for future locations if they're planning to expand, can give a real good idea for that. Here's an example of a map that we've created. This was for pharmacies, and we identified the locations of the pharmacies for the client, which was the Safeway locations, and then created a list in our business file where we could identify other pharmacies and get their addresses. So we could map those to see where in relation to our client were these other competitors, and how do we need to kind of build our marketing campaigns to pull in their customers, because we want to gain that market share. So you can see the yellow dots are the competitors, and then you can see that Walgreens, that's a mouse over. So when the client's looking at the map and interacting with it, they can put their mouse over that dot and know what kind of pharmacy that is and where it's located. It's a really, really great tool for clients to learn more about their area. All right, so that's some ways that you can build revenue with clients who bring their own list. And there's so many different ways. I hope that you learned something. Now we're going to jump into a few ways that when you need a list, how you can count on AccuData. So there's so many different lists out there. This is where we come in. You really just can rely on us. We have such a fantastic staff. They're going to help you all the way through from start to finish. Using AccuData, it really gives you a benefit of being able to access dozens of files on our online tool, which is AccuLeads.com, as well as hundreds, if not probably thousands, of databases that are offline. We have a lot of vendor partnerships. We utilize specialty data partners, as well as searching out response and vertical files that are offline that we can pull for you, provide counts, etc. You can gain some deeper insights into data, products, service options. We have a fantastic staff of very tenured direct mail and marketing professionals, so please tap into that. We really have a lot to offer. You can get a lot of consultation. So when you reach out to us, you're probably going to get asked a few questions, and we're going to help you with that in a couple of slides, but our team's going to ask a lot so they can provide a lot of information back that's going to be helpful. We have a couple different ways to interact. You can use our full service teams like I've just been discussing, but also that AccuLeads site is self-service. If you feel confident and you can navigate through there, we can provide training to get you familiar with the site, but it's a great tool because it's kind of fast. So if you need things quickly, you can get them right online. All right, guys, here's the big takeaway. This is not rocket science. We're going to make it really easy for you. You don't have to be fearful you're going to pick the wrong list. You don't have to be fearful that you're not going to provide the client the best options, because we're going to walk you through and help you do it. So here are some of the questions to ask for you to gather about the campaign. So when you say, hey, AccuData, this is what I'm looking for, we're going to say, great. Here's some stuff that's really good for us to know, because when we know these details, we can provide you the best possible consultation and proposals. So here's a few. What is the end user's name? Is it a company that we recognize and be able to understand what they do, or at least what's their line of business? If you don't want to say, hey, we're working with Macy's, then just say it's a large retailer that, you know, does clothing and cosmetics, etc., because it really gives us an idea of who that audience might be. Give us an idea of the goal of the campaign. Is this a timed offer? Is this a branding effort? What is the goal and what are they trying to get? How are they going to measure success on the back end? Do they have a particular budget? Or do they have a desired quantity of records? And when you tell us the budget, as a reseller, we know you're going to be marking it up. That's how you're going to make your revenue. So when you give us the budget, give us your budget. So we work into that, and it allows you to keep your margins intact because we want you to be profitable. What is the marketing plan? Is it a one-touch, multiple touches? Are they going to try to use this list multiple times? Are they incorporating digital? Is there a plan, or maybe you need some help and suggestions in making that plan? And then what's the offer? Is it a coupon? Is it a free service? Just those are little bits and pieces that really do help us on our end. And then, of course, who are we targeting? and where do you want them to be? And then is there any suppression data? Do they have existing clients that they want to back out? Do they have other mail files that maybe they've procured outside of working with you that we would need to back out so we don't deliver any duplicate data? So we're going to touch really quickly on a couple of the main kinds of files. Most of this is review, but I know there's going to be some of you out there who this is going to be really helpful for. So resident data, this is really easy. This is saturation. It's compiled by the United States Postal Service, and then providers will take that data, kind of massage it, clean it up, and get it ready for marketing. This is going to be for pizza offers, for all the offers that are for people that everybody uses it. Everybody likes pizza. Everybody orders pizza at one time or another, and so a coupon is going to be able to hit everybody in a particular area, and everybody is going to find that useful. The next one we're going to talk about is consumer data. So this is going to take that one step further. It's not going to be saturation. It's not going to hit every single house. It's going to hit a lot of them, but you're going to segment it based on who you want to target. If you are selling toys for children, you probably want to make sure that the households you market to have children in them. It's going to be important for the response on the campaign. If this is a Medicare offer, you're going to want to make sure that they fit that age group where that's going to be beneficial to them. Demographics can go from age and income to net worth to income producing assets to interest. Are you selling golf clubs? You probably want the people to be, playing golf and having an interest in golf, because then that offer is going to resonate and they're going to convert for your client. Business data. Again, you can pull that by the type of business, the size of the business, what type of business are they in terms of their line of business. You can find information about when they were started in terms of, are they in a plaza, do they own their building, do they rent their building, that kind of information can all be pulled on business data. And the SIC codes and the NAICS codes are government assigned, and then the business compilers add more detail to that, so we can get quite specific on the type of business by using those codes. So specialty and response data is like consumer data, but it's a little bit more specific. So on these, you're going to find the people who have a history of taking certain actions. They are the donors, and they are sourced by companies and nonprofits they've donated to. Responders, so people who have responded to particular types of campaigns. You may want to look for those when you're sending a similar type of campaign. And then subscribers. So we talked about if you're selling golf clubs, you probably want people with a golf interest. Subscribers might be men who subscribe to Golf Digest. So now that we've talked about the ways that you can add revenue when clients bring you data, all the many ways that we can help you identify lists of prospects for your clients to market to, AccuData can really help you in so many different ways. We do some things that are a little bit different in terms of our partnership with our resellers. We really do like to help with building your strategy. Come to us and give us the details that you have, and let us kind of build some ideas that might work for you. You can discuss it with your client and then come back and we can implement those for you. We do capabilities presentations fairly frequently. We do these for our clients who have maybe a staff that is newer and they don't know some of the capabilities that we have where they could take those and then turn around and sell them. We also do that when some of our long-term partners have new staff. So when you hire new people in that are going to be going out and selling, it's really important that they know what they can sell. We're happy to run through our capabilities that'll help them learn. We'll train them. We also join our clients on strategy calls directly with their client, and we're happy to be an extended, member of your team. We certainly don't have to be on the line as AccuData to prevent any channel conflict. We want to support you in your relationship with that client. And then we're happy to always provide tools and resources. You can always ask us for collateral pieces on specific products, and we can give you kind of a white labeled copy that you can put your logo on. So just ask. We're always here to help.
Bethany, thank you so much for taking our attendees through today's webinar, Beyond Lists, Easy Ways to Add Services and Grow Revenue. We've covered so much information, and there have been several questions that have been coming in, so we're going to go ahead and start addressing those. So the very first question that popped up was after you mentioned Medicare. And one of our attendees is asking, what do you recommend for Medicare mailers to find more addresses?
Oh, this is a fantastic question. So we have a special proprietary process that's called Source Plus. Remember when I spoke about the multiple files that we have here? We actually have 5 consumer files, and 4 of them we can put into a waterfall process. So, turning 65 is a date of birth piece. You're going to go to one file and you're going to get a certain count of how many records that particular database has. But there's going to be records that the next compiler has that are unique. They all have different, compilation strategies and sources. So we can go into one file, pull everyone that they have that's turning 65 in a certain month for your campaign, then we take that data and we suppress it against the next file. And we find any uniques they might have that the first file didn't have. We repeat that process up to as many as 4 files, and we can give you sometimes as much as a 25, 30, 40% lift in quantity. It's fantastic.
That's great.
It really is.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the next question, Bethany, this is someone that's asking about our training capabilities. They're asking if we have the ability to train on different types of lists so that their staff would know what to recommend when their own clients are asking.
Absolutely. I kind of mentioned that here towards the end. We are happy to develop a training, program, a couple different calls. We can jump on a webinar and take their team through the different types of lists. There's really a lot to know. We've done this for years, and we have some really great tools to kind of go through, explain what the differences are, what the nuances are, the use cases, and we enjoy doing that. I feel like when we do that, it really sparks some interest in who we train, and all of a sudden after that, we tend to hear from them a lot more, and they've got questions, and it's kind of exciting because they've learned all these new things. So absolutely happy to do that.
That's one of the things I love about AccuData and how much knowledge share they provide to clients. So I think that's great. Okay, so our next question, we have an attendee that's asking what the best way is to access their site, or our site, AccuLeads, and if there's a cost associated.
Okay, great. AccuLeads is a self-service tool. It's available to anyone. All you have to do is go to www.acculeads.com and create a login and password. There is no cost to sign up at all. Something you'll want to know is when you sign up, you will see pricing that is geared more for the end user. There is discounts for brokers, and we apply those. So once you sign up, if you are an existing client, the rep you work with currently will get a notification and will reach out to you and make sure that you found what you needed, see if you need any training, and make sure your pricing is set appropriately. If you're a new user for AccuLeads and perhaps you haven't interacted with us, then you're going to get set up in an account, and they're going to take you through and train you. So, yep, it's there, it's available to you, and there's absolutely no cost. And I'll tell you, there's actually a benefit to using the system. Not only is it really fast and gives you control, but it also has a reduced minimum in comparison to coming and using the team. So if you can do it yourself, we're going to give you a great discount.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next question I think is so relevant based on the fact that we were talking about adding digital solutions. We have an attendee that's asking if there are some strategies you can offer to help them increase email open rates.
Okay, so with email, a lot of people receive a ton of email into their inbox. So a couple things that you're going to want to do. One is you're going to want to make sure your subject line is extremely interesting. There are ways that you can check your subject line online. You can send us your subject lines and we will check them for you. They kind of have scores they'll give based on how you put it in. And little things will change that score. Things like punctuation or using too many, big words or saying certain words can diminish what they have found historically creates open rates. So I'd say your subject line is a really, really big one to entice people to open. The other one is multiple deployments. There have been a lot of studies that not only that, what we talked about with the impressions, you need to hit them 7 to 13 times, but in email, you need to have a cadence of emails. A lot of people say, well, I just want to send one. I think that's going to be great, and I'm going to have all this response. It just doesn't work that way. So the biggest way to get more opens is to communicate with the same audience with a new subject line about a week apart, and maybe do 2 to 3 more if you can. And each time you touch them, it's going to grow that interest and create more opens.
That sounds great. So several people have asked about today's presentation and if a copy of the webinar will be available. Yes, absolutely. Not only will you receive that by email, but we will also be posting that to our AccuData company site, and you'll be able to find the video under our resources page. So please stay tuned to receive a copy of that. Bethany, we've got a couple more questions before we wrap up. One of our attendees is asking about new mover data and how it's collected.
So new mover data is typically, it's divided into a couple segments. So there are new movers where we don't necessarily know if they're a homeowner or if they just moved locations, perhaps they're a renter. Then there's the segment of new movers that is the homeowners. They've moved, they've made a purchase, and they're a new homeowner. And then there's a new connect. And new connects are people who have connected a telephone, like a landline. So that might be a diminishing quantity, but it's compiled directly through like the operating centers for the phone systems. The new homeowners is compiled through pulling tax data, so it's compiled at the county. When you go and you purchase a home and you go to your closing, the title agent files that paperwork with the county. That data is pulled out of the counties, and that's how you get new homeowners. And then new movers are typically identified through changes in subscriptions, changes in utilities, credit header address changes, and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you our last question. We have an attendee that is asking if they have a B2B client, is there a way to take their data file and identify if businesses that exist on that file are closed?
Yes, there is a process that we can run. It's somewhat a business hygiene process, if you will, and it's called an out-of-business flag. And this is generated through a business data compiler. They make millions of phone calls annually to keep their data updated. Business data is really difficult to keep updated. As you can imagine, people can change jobs at will, and there's fluctuations with companies opening and closing. So the out-of-business flag will indicate when they haven't been able to reach someone, when there's been an issue with the address, when there's been undeliverable reports about that particular business, and when they can no longer source it through the ways in which they compile the file. They've developed a kind of scoring mechanism to identify the out-of-business flags. We run the file, it appends it, and then you can remove them.
Perfect. I love that. What a great service. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And on behalf of Bethany, as well as the entire AccuData team, I would like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And I invite you to contact us for any questions that you have regarding how you can grow revenue with data product and service offerings. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day. Thanks again.